Des gens ont rapporté ceci. Vous aurez dit qu'un gourou n'était pas nécessaire. D'autres ont rapporté le contraire. Que dit le Maharishi? Réponse. Je n'ai jamais dit qu'il n'y avait pas besoin d'un gourou. Question. Sri Aurobindo et d'autres disent de vous que vous n'avez pas de gourou. Réponse. Tout dépend de ce que vous appelez un gourou. Il n'a pas besoin d'avoir une forme humaine. Datreya avait 24 gourous, y compris les 5 éléments, terre, eau, air, feu et terre. Chaque objet dans ce monde était son gourou. Le gourou est absolument nécessaire. Les Upanishads disent que personne d'autre qu'un gourou ne peut faire sortir un homme de la jungle de l'intellect et des perceptions de sens. Donc il faut qu'il y ait un gourou. Question. Je veux dire un gourou humain. Maharishi n'en avait pas. Réponse. J'ai pu en avoir eu un à un moment ou à un autre. Mais n'ai-je pas chanté des hymnes à Arunachala? Qu'est-ce qu'un gourou? Le gourou est Dieu ou le soi. D'abord quelqu'un prie Dieu pour exaucer ses désirs. Puis vient un temps où il n'est pris plus pour la satisfaction des désirs matériels, mais pour Dieu lui-même. Alors Dieu lui apparaît sous une forme ou une autre, humain ou non humain, pour le guider vers lui, en réponse à sa prière et en fonction de ses besoins. Question. Quand on est fidèle à un seul maître, peut-on avoir du respect pour d'autres? Le gourou est unique. Il n'est pas physique. Tant qu'il y a de la faiblesse, on a besoin du support d'une force.
Some people reported you have to say that there was no need for a guru. Others gave the opposite report. What does Maharishi say? Answer. I have never said that there is no need for a guru. Question. Sri Aurobindo and others referred to you as having had no guru. Answer. It all depends on what you call a guru. It need not be in a human form. Dattatreya had 24 gurus, including the 5 elements, earth, water, etc. Every object in this world was his guru. The guru is absolutely necessary. The Upanishad says that none but a guru can take a man out of the jungle of intellect and sense perception. So there must be a guru. Question. I mean a human guru. Maharishi does not have one. Answer. I might have had one at one time or other. But did I not sing hymns to Arunachala? What is a guru? Guru is God or the self. First, a man prays to God to fulfill his desire. A time comes when he will not more pray for the fulfillment of material desire, but for God himself. God then appears to him, in some form or other, human or non-human, to guide him to himself in answer to his prayer and according to his needs. Question. When loyal to one master, can you respect others? Answer. Guru is one, is not physical. So long as there is weakness, the support of strength is needed.
When I am all-pervading, where can I go? The great incarnations, such as Buddha, Shankara, and Jesus, all came to redeem the world. When the time of the physical dissolution was approaching, these teachers, who had already completed the purpose of their manifestation, imparted a final divine Upadesha to their followers. Similarly, at the time of his Brahma Nirvana, Bhagavan, to console all the devotees who were grieving at the impending separation, looked at them graciously and spoke the following words. So, Braget, thinking this body itself to be Bhagavan, they are grieved that Bhagavan is suffering on account of his illness. What to do? They are worried that Swami is going to pass away. Where to go? How to go? Like the ambrosia that cures the bodily ailments of those who partake of it, these ambrosial words of jnana will instantly free from the disease of individual existence those who understand this truth. By revealing for the last time his true nature through this divine Upadesha, Bhagavan indicated that everyone's true nature was indeed that. Fully satisfied that the aim of his incarnation had been fulfilled, Bhagavan shone with a cheerful countenance in the state of Videha Mukti. It is known that during his last days, Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna was seriously afflicted by throat cancer. He had become very weak as a result of not eating or sleeping for many days. Even when he was suffering in this way, he remained firmly established in meditation. In addition to giving darshan to devotees, he was also dispelling the doubts of Vivekananda and other disciples regarding his own incarnation. We know from his biography that right until his final breath, he shone as compassion incarnate. Similarly, during his last days, Bhagavan Ramana, even though he was suffering intensely from fatal cancer, not only bore it cheerfully to the astonishment of the devotees, he also gave darshan uninterruptedly, showering his look of grace on all those who came. It is well known that he shone as the bountiful bestower of jnana right up to the very end. At the time of his Brahma Nirvana were there, in addition to the human devotees, animals such as cows, an elephant, and peacocks in the vicinity of the Nirvana room. Not being able to bear the impending separation from their beloved Lord, they forgot themselves and paid their last respects in a most touching manner. This rare and divine scene, which can be seen in the photo that were taken at the time, is something unique. It was not witnessed at the ends of the lives of other Mahatmas. This quote comes from Sri Ramana Darshanam, from Sadhu Nathanananda, and it's the number 25, page 43. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
From the book Face to Face with Sri Ramana Maharshi, Chapter 101. Sudananda Bharati was a patriot who worked in the field of Tamil literature, journalism, and social reconstruction during the 20s and 30s. His Ramana Vijayam is Sri Ramana's first biography in Tamil, His Arul Aravi, Torrents of Grace, contains songs dedicated to Sri Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. My last political speech was delivered in Tuticorin under the presidency of the heroic Chidambaram Pillai. As I was addressing the Mammoth meeting in the Vatakinar Maidan, tears flowed from my eyes. My subject was politics, and I was speaking religion. The spiritual India is already free. The material India shall be free through spiritual force. Start mass prayers and meditations. Purify and electrify your souls by yoga. Send out waves of good and great thoughts. Send out the message of the Upanishads. The waves shall transform the thoughts of humanity. The silent force of a silent sage is working behind the destiny of India. I felt this and had a vision of this clearly. I came down the platform and closed myself in meditation for one day. The vision was confirmed. The need of the hour, I wrote to Ganapati Muni, was yoga and silent development of power. By then I had the darshan of Maharshi Ramana. I hurried to him, finishing my political sojourn. I reached Sri Ramanashramam and entered the small room adjoining the mother's shrine. Ganapati Muni stood up exclaiming, "Welcome, welcome." Ramana's gentle voice said, "Let Bharati come in." I saw no human form. I felt dazed. Effulgence enveloped me. My mind disappeared into silence. I sat down, closed my eyes, and entered the inner cave of my heart. 1 hour passed like 5 minutes. I came back to myself, opened my eyes, and saw Ramana's lotus eyes riveted on mine. He appeared like a linga, spreading rays of burnished gold. After all these years of sadhana, here I experienced a delightful inner reality which was beyond words and thought. I caught hold of the Master's feet and shed tears of delight, singing with Saint Manika Vachakar, who sang, "Today thou hast risen in my heart, like the sun destroying darkness." The Muni congratulated me, saying, "Like myself, you have found the right Guru in the right place."
Narasimha Swami writes in his book Self-Realization, contact with a Maharshi made Bharati feel more introverted. His egotism sank so low that he began to refer to himself in the third person. In this way, he spent 6 months at Tiruvannamalai. Later, he wrote a brilliant piece of poetic prose, Ramana Vijayam, every line of which breathes intense devotion to the Maharshi.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Promenade sur le lac Samudram avec Bhagavan. Un matin après le petit déjeuner, les dévots dans la salle ont exprimé à Bhagavan le désir de visiter le Samudram. Bhagavan était assez humain pour accepter la suggestion et nous sommes tous allés nous promener pour la voir. La digue de réservoir est de plus de 2 km de long et nous avons marché de l'ashramam au réservoir, environ 1 km, et puis toute la distance de la digue. La présence de Bhagavan et ses paroles étaient plus intéressantes pour nous que le réservoir débordant et la vue imprenable sur le lac au pied de la Sainte, Arunachalam. Bhagavan a parlé de beaucoup de choses, dont je m'en souviens. À cette distance du temps, seulement 2 sujets d'intérêt. À un endroit, Bhagavan a souligné un arbre de palmyre qui s'est décomposé à l'emprise et à l'étreinte d'un banyan parasite. Un oiseau avait laissé tomber la graine du banyan dans la palmyre. Et lorsque le banyan a commencé sa croissance, la palmyre s'est coincée, s'est fendue et a ralenti sa croissance. Attirant notre attention sur ce phénomène, Bhagavan a remarqué que c'est juste l'effet du regard de la grâce du dhyani. Un regard dans une âme, et tout l'arbre de Vasanas récolté à travers les cycles des naissances est brûlé et se désintègre. Alors la réalité de l'Atman est vécue. Dans l'analogie, l'arbre des Vasanas et la palmyre est le regard du Guru, la semence de la grâce et le banyan. Ainsi Bhagavan nous a expliqué l'effet du contact avec un Mahapurusha. Le suprême dhyana, qui est obtenu par le toucher du Satpurusha, ne peut jamais être obtenu par l'étude de n'importe quel nombre d'écritures ou par n'importe quel stock de punya karma, actes vertueux, ou par d'autres sadhanas. Puis, quand nous étions à la sortie du débordement au bout du lac, nous étions tous émerveillés par la largeur de celui-ci, qui était aussi large qu'une rivière. Nous avons séjourné là-bas pendant un certain temps. Puis nous sommes revenus. Sur le chemin du retour, nous sommes passés devant le déversoir, au milieu de la digue. En le montrant du doigt, Bhagavan fit remarquer: regardez ce petit passage qui est petit, si on le compare au gros à l'autre bout. L'énorme contenu du lac serait de peu de valeur pour les cultures, si ce n'était pour ce petit orifice qui laisse passer un filet d'eau. Si la digue cédait, ce serait un vrai déluge, et toutes les récoltes seraient perdues. C'est seulement si on les irrigue par cet écoulement bien contrôlé que cela aide les plantes à pousser. Il en est de même pour la conscience de Brahma. À moins que la félicité de cette conscience ne soit accordée par la grâce du Guru, par des chemins éprouvés, l'âme n'a pas d'aide pour atteindre Vasanakshaya, la destruction des tendances du mental. Car selon le processus, l'Atman, demeurant en tant que tel dans l'unité avec le Brahman, s'établit dans l'Astipada, l'être d'être, du Guru, s'accrochant à son aspect de Satchit, être conscience. Le travail de Vasankshaya se poursuit en même temps et là où les formes pensées s'élèvent pour mettre le mental en action, c'est-à-dire dans sa nature rajasique. Ce travail de Vasankshaya ne devient possible que dans la proximité du Guru. Par conséquent, le Guru lui-même est comme le déversoir. il irrigue les âmes par la grâce de son Kripa Samudram, grâce divine. Il en est besoin pour demeurer en tant que l'Atman et accomplir le Vasanakshaya, la destruction des tendances du mental. Au contraire, si la digue est rompue, la pleine force du lac tout entière jaillit, balayant tout sur son passage. Cela ressemble à un sadhaka qui reçoit la pleine force de la conscience de Brahma. Sans l'intervention ni la modération de la grâce du désarroi du gourou, et ainsi il meurt physiquement sans avoir le bénéfice d'avoir pu effectuer la destruction des vasanas. T.K.S. Iyer Call Divine, April 1, 1981. Om Arunachala Siva.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Walk on Samundaram Lake with Bhagavan. One morning, after breakfast, the devotees in the hall expressed to Bhagavan a desire to visit the Samudram. Bhagavan was human enough to accept the suggestion, and all of us went for a stroll to see it. The tank bund is over 2 miles long, and we walked from the ashram to the tank about a mile, and then the whole distance of the bund. The presence of Bhagavan and his birds were more interesting to us than the brimming tank and the grand view of the lake at the foot of the holy Arunachalam. Bhagavan talked of many things, of which I remember at this distance of time only 2 topics of interest. At one place, Bhagavan pointed out a palmyra tree which had decayed at the grip and embrace of a parasite banyan tree. Some bird had dropped the seed of the banyan into the palmyra, and as the banyan began its growth, the palmyra got struck and cloven and stunted in its growth. Drawing our attention to this phenomenon, Bhagavan remarked that is just the effect of the look of grace of the Jnani. One look into your soul, and the whole tree of vasanas gathered through cycles of birth is burnt down and decays. Then the reality of the Atman is experienced. In the analogy, the tree of vasanas is the palmyra, and the look of the Guru, the seed of grace, is the banyan. Thus, Bhagavan explained to us the effect of contact with a Mahapurusha. The supreme jnana that is obtained by the touch of the Sat Purusha can never be obtained by the study of any number of scriptures or by any store of punya karma, virtuous deeds, or by other sadhanas. Then, when we were actually at the outlet of the overflow at the end of the lake, we all marveled at the width of it, which was as wide as a river. We stayed there for some time and then returned. On the return walk, we happened to pass the sluice at the middle of the bund. Pointing to it, Bhagavan remarked, "Look at this small outlet as opposed to the big one at the end. But for this small hole through which trickled the stream of water. The huge contents of the lake would not be helpful to the vegetation. If the bund breaks, it would be a regular deluge and the entire crops would be destroyed. Only if served properly, regulated through this sluice, are the plants helped to growth. So too is the Brahmic consciousness. Unless the bliss of this consciousness is gifted through the grace of the Guru in seasoned outlets, the soul cannot be helped to Vasanakshya, the destruction of the tendencies of the mental mode. For in this process, the Atman, abiding as such in its oneness with the Brahman, is established in the Astipada, the state of being of the Guru. Holding on to its aspect of Sat Chit, the work of Vasanakshya proceeds as and when the thought forms arise to propel the mind into action, that is, in its Rajasic nature. This work of Vasanakshya becomes possible only in the proximity of the Guru. Hence, the Guru himself is like the sluice and irrigates the souls with the grace out of his Kripa Samundram, needed for the abundance as the Atman undoing the Vasanakshya. Whereas, if the bund is broken, the full force of the whole lake rushes through, sweeping everything before it. This resembles a sadhaka receiving the full force of Brahmic consciousness without the intervening and mitigating grace of the Guru's sluice, and so physically dies without the benefit of effecting the destruction of the Vasanas by T.K. Sundaresa Iyer, called Divine, April 1, 1958. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.